Salut French 101 students, ça va? Bienvenue au vidéo 4 du chapitre 1, les descriptions des gens. So here in video 4, starting in our second week of chapter 1, we're going to be looking at some more ways to describe people, looking at some more adjectives, and some way to qualify those adjectives. What do I mean by qualify? Is not to just say, je suis jeune, like I am young, and that's it. It's an absolute. We have some words here in bold and underline that will kind of look at these adjectives in degrees. We can look at them in different ways. So let's go ahead and look at all the sentences we have up here at the top of the slide. Define some new expressions that we see there, and that's going to help you take the adjectives that you're learning and kind of use them in some different ways. Okay, so up here we have je suis très. Très means very. So if you put an adjective after that, it doesn't mean that you're just that thing. It means you really are that thing. So we're kind of turning up the volume on that adjective, if you will. Okay, you could also say je suis plutôt or assez. And that would roughly translate to like rather or pretty, like I am pretty young. Je suis plutôt jeune. And you could say je suis assez also, and it means pretty much the same thing. Je suis assez jeune. I'm pretty young or I'm rather young. That sounds a little more formal in English. Okay, you could also say je suis un peu. Un peu means a little. So now we're kind of turning the volume down. Très is turning it up. Plutôt or assez is kind of in the middle. Un peu is kind of going down. We're not that thing very much. So if I said je suis un peu jeune, it means I'm a little bit young. I'm not, in the middle. I'm just a little bit. And the last expression we have here is je ne suis pas du tout. So je ne suis pas means, if you remember from previous videos, I am not. If you add du tout, it means at all. So it's not just that you're not something, it's that you absolutely are not that thing. So this is like the opposite of je suis très. So if I say je suis très jeune, I am very young. And if I were to say je ne suis pas du tout jeune, it means I am not young at all whatsoever. It's the opposite of that. So je suis très and je ne suis pas du tout are like opposites. Je suis plutôt, je suis un peu are kind of somewhere in the middle. So we can say je suis très is kind of like 100%. Je ne suis pas du tout is 0%. Je suis plutôt is maybe around like 75%. Je suis un peu would be like a 25%. Sometimes it's helpful to think of meanings of words in terms of percentages like that. It kind of helps you envision what they mean. Okay, so I could choose any of these expressions and I could, create a sentence describing myself using je suis. And we have various adjectives we can use here. The example I've been using up to now was jeune for young. And jeune is the same whether it's masculine or feminine. There's no change in form. Vieux is old, so that's the opposite of jeune, of course. The feminine form is vieille. It has a lot of vowels in it in the middle there, but it's pronounced vieille. Je suis vieille. So if I were describing myself, if I'm feeling old, I could describe myself and say, je suis très vieille. I'm very old. Okay, the two in the middle, another set of opposites here. We have beau, which means beautiful, or it can mean handsome if you're referring to a male as you're using that word. But you could use beau in the sense of beautiful if you were describing an object. Maybe I could say le bateau est beau. The boat is beautiful. Okay, so I could use it in that way. Le bateau, the boat, is a masculine noun, so I would use beau to describe it. Belle is the feminine form of this word. It also means beautiful. And you might even think of, for example, the woman's name Isabel. In French, it would be spelled this way. And you can see belle is kind of part of that. And I wonder if there's a connection there. It probably has something to do with being a beautiful woman. So belle would be the feminine form of this word. So I could say, je suis très belle, if I were describing myself. What a nice thing to say. So if you are describing yourself and you're female, you would use that form. The opposite of this would be laid or laide, and this is ugly. Of course, nobody wants to say this about themselves. So you could say, je ne suis pas du tout laide. Or if you are describing yourself as a male, you could say, je ne suis pas du tout laid. So laid, the D is not pronounced, it is silent. When you add the E to it, then you do pronounce the D, and the vowel sound in the middle changes a little bit. It goes from laid to laide. And the third set of opposites we have over here is intelligent for masculine form, intelligente. You're pronouncing the T if it's the feminine form. Bête is another way of, it's actually the opposite of intelligent. It would mean not very smart. Intellectuel is like intellectual in English, so you know the meaning of that already. And you would add an LE to the end for the feminine form, although the pronunciation doesn't change. So that's just a spelling change that you have to pay attention to. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to give you the chance to try out one of these statements yourself. You can choose any one of these. Je suis très, je suis plutôt, assez, je suis un peu, je ne suis pas, ou je ne suis pas du tout. You can choose any one of those and add any one of these adjectives to the end of your sentence. And let's see how you do at that. All right. Now we'll move on to some other adjectives. We have exactly the same expressions up at the top. Je suis très, je suis plutôt, je suis assez, je suis un peu, je ne suis pas du tout. And again, you can add any of these adjectives to them. So you're getting a lot more vocabulary in this part of chapter 1. So you have adjectives like dynamique or paresseux, and what do they mean? Dynamique would be active. We probably wouldn't use the word dynamic in English to describe a person who is active. I think active would be the more natural word in English, but dynamique would be the French equivalent. Paresseux means lazy, so you can see the picture of the couch potato here. The feminine form of paresseux is paresseuse. So if I say, je suis un peu paresseuse, I'm a little bit lazy. I'm describing myself. We also have for athletic the adjectives sportif for masculine form, sportive. So notice the difference in the pronunciation of the consonants in those words. Sportif is like F, sportive, V sound. Okay, so I could say, je suis assez sportive. And that's true. I like to run. J'aime courir. The middle set of adjectives, we have intéressant or intéressante. So this is masculine versus feminine. You pronounce the T in the feminine form. We have ennuyeux et ennuyeuse. And this is boring. So in these pictures, we're basically describing a professor giving a lecture. So the first professor on top, elle est intéressante. And the professor on the bottom, the students seem to be taking a nap. So il est ennuyeuse. He is boring. We could also describe these professors as amusante or amusant. We could also say marrant or marrante. And then finally over here we have another set of adjectives, some of which are opposites. Bon is the masculine form, bonne is the feminine form. So we could say je suis un peu bonne, il est bon if I'm describing him in the masculine form. Mauvais or mauvaise is bad in masculine and feminine form. We could also describe people as agréable or désagréable, so friendly or unfriendly. Gentil et gentil, the pronunciation is the same. The only difference is the spelling, so this matters if you're writing a sentence but not if you're speaking. I could say je suis méchante, which means I'm mean. No, I don't think so. Je suis sympa, sympathique. I think I'm nice. Méchant would be the masculine form, méchante the feminine. Sympathique and sympa are the same, whether it's masculine or feminine. Sympa is just a shortened form of that word. And finally, antipathique, which would be basically like antisocial, not very friendly or nice. Okay, so I'll give you the chance to do this once again. Choose any one of these statements and create a sentence of your own. You can add any one of these adjectives after it and use the form that corresponds to you, the masculine or the feminine form. All right, and finally, the last thing that we're going to be looking at with description des gens would be making some comparisons. So what are you like compared to your best friend? So you see I have arrows pointing and underline and bold of all these different expressions that are in these sentences. And we also see adjectives, and we can go ahead and just highlight those in red so they stand out too, and that will allow us to see the pattern in each of these sentences. Okay, so je suis plus dynamique que mon meilleur ami ou ma meilleure amie. So this sentence is saying that I am more active than my best friend. So in English, the equivalent expression of this first sentence would be more than. So I am more something than somebody else. I'm comparing myself to that person and I'm saying that I have a higher degree of that description than somebody else has. Excuse me. So in French, that combination of more than is plus que. Plus or plus, the S is sometimes pronounced in this word. Most of the time it's not. If there's an adjective that's following it and it doesn't begin with a vowel sound like this dynamique right here, the S is not going to be pronounced. It'll be silent. Je suis plus dynamique que mon meilleur ami. And you could plug in any adjective and you could transform the adjective to agree with you, masculine or feminine. I could say, je suis plus paresseuse que mon meilleur ami. So I'm more lazy. Even though in English, we would use the ER ending instead in that case, because in English, we would say more than or add ER depending on how many syllables the adjective has. So if I use a word like lazy in here, it only has 2 syllables, so I would just tack an ER onto the end of that. I am lazier than my best friend. But if I'm using, let's see, an adjective that has more than 2 syllables, like, or maybe it can be tricky. I can't think of a good example right at this moment, but you just know. When you're a native speaker, you know which one to use at which time. But in French, you're only using one form, which is plus que, or plus que. Okay, to say that you're the same as somebody else, you would use aussi que. Je suis aussi sportive que mon meilleur ami. And that means I am just as athletic or just as sporty as my best friend. We're the same. We're on the same level as far as that's concerned. And notice I didn't point out in the first sentence that you can refer to a male or female friend too. So you could say mon meilleur ami. Notice the nasal vowel sound on. So that means mon meilleur ami, my best friend. If you're talking about a female friend, it would then become ma meilleure amie, except that in addition to using ma, you would add e endings to meilleur and ami. So I am just as sporty as my best friend. And finally, we would say, je suis moins timide que mon meilleur ami. I am less shy than my best friend. So this would be the opposite of plus que. So I am less something than my best friend. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to create one sentence from this slide. You can choose plus que, aussi que, or moins que. You can choose any adjective that you'd like to put in the middle of that expression, and you can use mon meilleur ami or ma meilleure amie, and you can create your own sentence. So I could say something like, je suis aussi intelligente que mon meilleur ami. So I said, I am just as intelligent as my best friend. So you can go back, look at one of the previous slides, rewind the video a little bit, and take a look at some of those adjectives and choose one that you think would work for you. Okay, so that is everything we'll be looking at for this short video, giving you a few more adjectives and some other expressions to be able to expand your use of those adjectives. So I hope this was helpful, and we'll be moving on to, in our next presentation, we'll be looking at other adjectives and continuing on with the comparative. So that's all for now. À la prochaine!